Oddities and wonders of marine creatures and birds. I'll show you the most incredible animal births caught on camera. You'll see the vivipara process on land and underwater. You'll find out which animals lay giant eggs, which animals give birth to millions of babies, and which animals can give birth to real mutants. In this episode, I'll show you how babies are born through mouth and back and how animals are reborn by shedding their skin. Definitely worth seeing. Sit back, relax, and see oddities and wonders of animal reproduction. Red sea urchins. Peak spawning occurs between June and September. The eggs are fertilized externally as they float in the ocean, and the planktonic larvae remain in the water column for about a month before settling on the sea floor, where they undergo metamorphosis into tiny urchins. Young hedgehogs use chemical signals to locate adults. Each gonad is connected to the outside through a short gonad, which opens through a hole in one of the reproductive plates around the anus. Females and males shed their reproductive products into seawater, where fertilization occurs in seawater, and embryonic development leads to the formation of a larva known as an echinoplodius. Echinoderms have a superior ability to regenerate amputated parts, noting that this phenomenon of amputation is used as a means of reproduction. Chenowback lizard. Chenowback lizard. Most lizards reproduce by laying eggs. Lizard, reptile are oviparous and not viviparous. This means that female anoles are egg-laying mammals, oviparous, like most reptiles. The female's abdomen becomes noticeably swollen and her appetite increases. The egg she produces is so large that it fills almost her entire body cavity. Naked mole rats. Naked mole rats reproduction. A queen can produce a new litter every 80 days and can have up to 5 litters per year. Pups generally weigh less than 0.07 ounces, 2 grams, at birth. The number of pups per litter is quite variable. The average is about 12 with a maximum of about 30, the largest known litter size of any mammal. Gastric brooding frog. Gastric brooding frog reproduction. Gastric brooding frog tadpoles develop in their mother's stomach for 6 to 7 weeks. The tadpoles do not feed during this time, as they lack tooth rows. The young develop at different rates and are birthed when they are ready. Expelling all of the juvenile frogs may take several days. Darwin's frog. Darwin's frog is an amphibian, which was discovered by Charles Darwin. This unusual animal lives in South America. It hides by turning into a dead leaf, which means that it senses the approaching of threatening animals, so it hides when predators approach until the danger passes. Darwin's frog is a small species of animal, with a triangular-shaped head and a pointed snout. Carnivores, they have a sticky tongue to catch prey. Darwin's frog feeds on a variety of small invertebrates including insects, worms, snails and spiders. And also small mammals such as rodents, snakes and birds. Reproduction. The female lays her eggs, and the male guards them for 2 weeks. Male Darwin's frogs usually protect their developing tadpoles in a pouch around their neck and change their location by jumping away. Suriname toad. Common Suriname toad reproduction. Pop goes the toadlet. Unlike other toads, the Suriname toad has an unusual way of reproducing. Males call to the females by making a clicking sound underwater. A willing female releases 60 to 100 eggs, and the male fertilizes them and pushes the eggs onto her back, where they stick to her skin. Seahorses. Seahorses reproduction. In seahorses and pipefish, it is the male that gets pregnant and gives birth. Seahorse fathers incubate their developing embryos in a pouch located on their tail. The pouch is the equivalent of the uterus of female mammals. It contains a placenta, supporting the growth and development of baby seahorses. Penguin. Penguin reproduction. Breeding. Emperor penguins begin courtship in March or April and are serially monogamous, typically taking 1 mate per year. The female lays 1 egg in May or June, transfers the egg to the male, and returns to sea to feed while the male incubates the egg in his brood pouch for about 65 days. Snail. Snail reproduction. They have both female and male reproductive cells. They are hermaphrodite. They don't actually need to mate with another snail in order to reproduce. Self-fertilization is possible. After mating they lay around 80 white eggs in a damp, underground nest. Emu. Emu breeding. Mating and reproduction of the emu is very similar to the ostrich. The mating season for ostriches falls in December and January, and females lay eggs in April, May or June. The female lays 5 to 15 eggs at a time, each egg weighing just over 1 pound. The male builds the nest and sits on the eggs, while the female does not sit on the eggs at all. The incubation period for emu eggs is 56 days. Ostrich. Ostrich breeding. Ostriches have a defined period for mating and breeding, which takes place from June to late October or early November. After the flamboyant courting rituals, the pair of ostriches will create a shallow nest in the dirt and the female ostrich will lay an egg roughly every second day. Mantis. Reproduction. The praying mantis reproduces in a strange way. The female praying mantis will bite off the male's head, and if mating has already begun, the males will have very vigorous movements while delivering the sperm. Although the female bites off the male's head for mating, this is the typical way of going about feeding as well. The male attempts to engage the female in a courtship dance in order to persuade the female to go the mating route versus feeding. To mate after the courtship dance, the male praying mantis will leap onto the female's back, collapsing her thorax and wing bases with his forelegs. Once the collapsing is done, he then bends his abdomen to place his sperm into a cavity that is located on the tip of the female's abdomen. The female praying mantis is able to lie anywhere from 10 and 400 eggs, which are coated in a substance produced by glands in her abdomen. This substance will harden and then acts as a protective coating. This protective coating and egg together are called an toothache. The prime mating period for the praying mantis in temperate climates begins in the fall. Like other insects in related groups, the praying mantis goes through 3 stages of metamorphosis: egg, nymph, and adult. Lacewing. Lacewing reproduction. Green lacewings develop through 4 stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The adult female lays about 100 to 300 eggs during her several-week lifespan. After hatching, larvae develop through 3, increasingly larger instars before pupating on plant surfaces or under loose bark. The adult lacewing lays her eggs on foliage where each egg is attached to the top of a hair-like filament. Females lay their tiny, oblong eggs on silken stalks attached to plant tissues. Depending on the species, eggs are laid singly or in clusters, each on an individual stalk. Eggs are green when laid, and then darken before hatching. This prevents the first larvae hatched from eating the other eggs. Fire salamander. Fire salamander. Reproduction. In fire salamanders, embryos are held in eggs within the female's uterus. Once they have developed enough, the eggs will hatch within the mother, and many larvae will be born into an aquatic environment, where they will continue to grow and develop until they themselves are mature diploid adults. Males produce a cone of jelly tipped by a packet of sperm. This is called a spermatophore. The male leads the female over the spermatophore, and she stands over it and takes it up into her cloaca. Sea turtle. Sea turtle reproduction. The sea turtle lays up to 100 eggs, which incubate in the warm sand for about 60 days. The temperature of the sand determines the genders of baby sea turtles, with cooler sand producing more males and warmer sand producing more females. A sea turtle lays eggs into a nest dug in the sand. Every year, from about May to September, nesting female sea turtles emerge from the Gulf of Mexico to use the beaches of the Gulf Islands to lay their eggs. Sea turtles are an example of an animal that reproduces sexually. Frilled shark. Frilled shark reproduction. Frilled sharks reproduce via internal fertilization and give live birth. However, they do not connect to their young through a placenta, like in most mammals. Females can give birth to somewhere between 2 and 15 young at a time. The average litter size is 6, however. When born, young sharks are between 15 and 24 inches long. Their lifespan is about 25 years. Octopus. Octopus reproduction. In most species, the male uses a specially adapted arm to deliver a bundle of sperm directly into the female's mantle cavity, after which he becomes senescent and dies, while the female deposits fertilized eggs in a den and cares for them until they hatch, after which she also dies. Some octopuses lay hundreds of thousands of eggs at a time, while others will only produce 1 egg capsule at a time. They can contain up to 100 embryos. Each egg is created in the ovary and then coated with a nutrient-rich yolk for it to develop in, the translucent, rubbery white sac that is visible to us. dolphin. Dolphin reproduction. They generally begin to reproduce when they are between 5 and 15 years old, with the exact age varying by population. Female bottlenose dolphins can reach sexual maturity before males. Females are pregnant for about 12 months and give birth, on average, every 3 to 6 years. Like all mammals, common bottlenose dolphins reproduce through internal fertilization, and females give birth to live young. Juveniles are able to swim from the moment they are born, but they are totally dependent on nursing their mother's milk for nearly 2 years. Whales. Whales reproduction. Whales fertilize internally, so the male will deposit his sperm in the female, fertilizing one egg. The females will carry the singleton baby for almost a full year, with the gestation lasting 11 months. Whales are not monogamous, and males and females do not form tight bonds after mating. Blue whales reproduce via sexual meiosis. The male and female each produce haploid gametes. Male gametes are sperm, and the female gametes are eggs. A single sperm and egg fertilize to form a diploid zygote. Whales and dolphins do not lay eggs because they are marine mammals. Hamsters. Hamsters reproduction. Reproduction. Breeding onset is at approximately 90 days in both females and males, although females may have their first estrus at 35 days. Hamsters are polyestrous and breed year-round. Ovulation is spontaneous. The duration of the estrus cycle is 4 days, with estrus and mating usually occurring in the evening. Hamsters produce litters of 4 to 6 pups on average, though litters of 12 are not uncommon. Some contain as many as 20 pups. Pups are born hairless, blind, and deaf. Their incisors are present at birth. Red king crab. Red king crab reproduction. Female red king crabs reproduce once a year and release between 50,000 and 500,000 eggs. Larvae hatch from eggs looking like tiny shrimp. The larvae feed on phytoplankton and zooplankton for 2 to 3 months before metamorphosing into tiny crabs and settling on the ocean bottom. This species reproduces via internal fertilization, and the females brood the fertilized eggs under their abdomen for as long as a year. Red king crabs prefer cold water, so they stay relatively deep during the summer, when they primarily concentrate on feeding and caring for their eggs. Periodical cicadas. Periodical cicadas reproduction. Mated females lay eggs in the stems of woody plants. Within 2 months of the original emergence, the life cycle is complete and the adult cicadas die. Later in that same summer, the eggs hatch and the new nymphs burrow underground to develop for the next 13 or 17 years. After mating, the female makes slits in tree branches and lays eggs there. The eggs hatch 6 to 7 weeks later, the nymphs fall to the ground and go into the soil, and the cycle begins again. The adult periodical cicadas only live 3 to 4 weeks. Frogs. Frogs reproduction. All frogs reproduce sexually, and all hatch from eggs. In almost all frogs, egg fertilization happens outside the female's body instead of inside. The female releases her eggs and the male releases his sperm at the same time. Most frogs need to lay their eggs in water. Mating. The males will clamber on top of the female in shallow areas of water. This causes the female to lay her eggs, up to 5,000 of them. These are promptly fertilized by the male. Many species lay eggs in a film on the surface of the water, while others lay eggs in large clumps attached to vegetation. Tadpoles of true frogs may take 2 years or more to transform into adults. The female extrudes eggs a few at a time. These are pushed into her pouch by the male, who uses the hind feet to catch and push the eggs. The eggs are fertilized. Others breed along the mountain streams where they live year-round. In the latter species and in those that breed on land, there is no great concentration of breeding individuals at one place. In all cases, the mating call produced by the male attracts females to the breeding site. At a communal breeding site, such as a pond, swamp, or stream. Frogs have rather simple vocal cords, in most species a pair of slits in the floor of the mouth opening into a vocal pouch. Air is forced from the lungs over the vocal cords, causing them to vibrate and thus produce sound of a given pitch and pulsation.
Be sure to subscribe to Top 5s with notifications on.